Good evening. This is the Wednesday, March 27, 2013 meeting of the Finance Committee, it being just after 7 o'clock. My apologies on that. Our agenda tonight, we're actually changing the agenda in front of us. We initially had transfer requests. We're going to move that to the end of the agenda. First off, we'll actually move to, there'll be a School Buildings Committee presentation and discussion. This is on the Auburn Middle School project, very important project for the town. That'll be coming up for a vote later in springtime. Also, the fiscal 14 budget for the school department will be presented tonight and also discussed and hopefully voted on. At that point, then, we'll take care of transfers. I guess there's just a couple of minor transfers. And then we'll adjourn budgets that we'll be looking at over the next week or so. Next week, we've got the fire department, emergency management, and police departments come in, leaving the Law, Bay Path, Solid Waste Youth Commission, and pension and benefits, and CIP left to be done sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks as we wrap up this budget season. So that's it for the agenda tonight. It's mostly school-related, very important and significant part of our operating and capital budget. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, I want to recognize the Boy Scouts from Troop 121. They're here to attend the town meeting, and they're working on their citizenship and the community badge, which is a Eagle Required Merit Badge. So that's a good sign, fellows, that you're working towards that Eagle. Enjoy the meeting.
Congratulations and good luck, fellas. Someone pinch them if they fall asleep a little bit. Okay. I just want to note the CFO will be running a little late on a personal matter, but we'll be here by the time we do the budget presentation. Dr. Brunel is aware of that. We will not start that budget deliberation without the CFO being here. So with that, I'm going to hand that over to you, Dr. Brunel, to introduce the buildings team and engineers, architects, and all the important folks.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee, and Mrs. Kwiatkowski. On behalf of Mark Imsey, SBC Chairperson, as well as the entire SBC, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you an update regarding the middle school project this evening. From the very start of this project, the goal of the SBC was to engage in an open and transparent process. As you'll recall, there were numerous joint meetings between the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, School Committee, and School Building Committee, along with numerous meetings that were held by SBC. All of our meeting minutes, agendas, any documents created are posted on the website. The idea being that we believe that the people in Auburn, the citizens and residents and voters, have a right to have as much comprehensive information as absolutely possible. The goal of the SBC was to study various options as required by MSBA. Our goal was to bring forward the most educationally appropriate yet fiscally sound option. And the presentation you will see this evening does just that. It's the option to build new on the West Street site. I'd like to introduce a few people in the audience who have been key members, and last night I inadvertently left out some names, so I will apologize in advance. I won't do it on purpose. Helping with the presentation this evening is Eric Moore from Lamro Pagano, the designer on the project. Also, we have Paul Needler here from Skanska USA Builders. They are the owner's project manager on this project as well. In addition, we have some SBC members, Mr. Bonafiglio from the Finance Committee. We have Mr. Didi, who is here as well, Mr. Laurie as chairperson of the School Committee, and a number of supporters who are here for this project. So without further ado, I'd like to thank all of you as a Finance Committee for your past support of this project and what I hope will be your anticipated future support. So I will turn it over to Mr. Moore to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the Finance Committee, for being here tonight. I'd like to first talk quickly about process. Mary Ellen spoke to the lengthy process we went through before we got to the point where we are now. We started by having to look at the Swanson Road site, not only from a repair aspect, but also we looked at repair renovations to that renovation addition to that building. The existing building is about 60,000 square feet. The proposed building, as mandated by MSBA requirements, is about 100,000 square feet, so it's about 40,000 square feet larger than what's there now. So we looked at an extensive series of additions. We looked at new construction on the Swanson Road site where the existing building would be demolished. We looked at new construction, not only at the Swanson Road site, but also at Packagug Hill and Prospect Hill, two other sites in town, as well as West Street. Ultimately, West Street was selected as the best option. One of the primary reasons for that is it allows development of a new building without impacting the existing facility. There's no impact to the students. They don't have to attend modular classrooms. They don't have to go through the pain of a phased construction renovation where, you know, it might take 2 years or longer to get the project done. So that was a big reason. And with the addition of the potential addition of the Masonic parcel contingent upon approval at the town meeting and the debt exclusion vote, that West Street site is large enough to sustain the proposed building and site amenities. So having said that, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I know most everybody in town has seen this already several times.
We hope so.
Pardon?
We hope so.
So we'll try to move this quickly. Okay, so everybody's seen the site here. This is Southbridge Route 12, West Street running to the north here, Randall Building, Masonic Lodge, Life Care Center, and this is Masonic Circle coming in here. The proposed building is located behind the Randall Building, which remains. So all at the fire station and the training complex will continue to function as they do now. Masonic Lodge will remain, Circle, Life Care Center. We have some site features I'll describe quickly. We have a multi-use field here, football, soccer, field hockey. We have a smaller practice field here. We have parking in front of the building and around the back. We have a driveway that goes all the way around so the building can be accessed. Some other site features, if you're familiar with Swanson Road, you know that there's congestion problems with buses and parent pickup. That's one of the things we wanted to address. All of the traffic comes in from West Street here. Buses will come in, they will queue up along this area here. This will be a buses only lane, and the students will get off and they'll use this main entrance here. Parents will also come in from West Street, but they'll take a different route. They'll begin to queue up along here, and we've provided quite a lengthy queuing space to the back of the building where there's another entrance, and that's devoted to students that are dropped off or picked up by their parents. And their parents would continue out along this driveway and exit through this exit-only lane back to West Street and go either left or right there. A few other site features. We have this multi-use field, as I mentioned. We have an ad alternate to make that a synthetic turf field, which would allow it to be used much more extensively and not be subject to the maintenance and irrigation requirements of a natural turf field. We also have a smaller irrigated turf practice field. We have a school garden. That's a feature of our sustainable design effort to make this a green school and to achieve a higher level of compliance with mass chips. We get points for that, and if we achieve 50 points with mass chips, we get 2% reimbursement additional from the state for that. So that's one of the site features. We also have an outdoor classroom that's got some fixed seating and it's got some paved areas so that the classrooms that open up to that area, the technology shops, the art rooms, science classrooms can go out and use that in good weather. We've worked extensively with the Safety Advisory Committee. They've had quite a bit of input into the traffic circulation. This separate lane exit came out of that discussion. Also, the Masonic Circle connection here. This will be a gated off connection, normally closed, but can be opened for special events, emergencies as needed. We have done a traffic study. One of the issues, we know there's extensive traffic along West Street heading southbound in the mornings to access the Mass Pike. One of the things that came out of that was recommendation to retime this intersection here. So during the peak hours, the green light for the southbound on West Street will stay to allow traffic to flow through for a longer period, and then it will revert back to its regular timing. We've got some additional things coming out of that traffic study. One will be some flashing lights, identifying this as a school zone, and also some lights that will be controlled by the fire department, so that in the event they need to get out in a hurry, they can hit a button. It will stop traffic on West Street from both directions and allow them to get out quickly. Okay, parking, we've got about 160 spaces compared to 100, not even 100, about 90 existing spaces at Swanson Road. The floor plans, I know you've seen them, so I'm not going to go into great detail. I can tell you that this is a response to the team-based curriculum. There are 4 wings. 3 of those are typical classroom wings that each serve two teams of about 100 students each, and the students would stay in those classroom wings. So they have all of their classes there. They have general classrooms for their core academics, math, English, other classes. They have science labs. There are 2 science labs for each wing with a shared prep room there. There are teacher workrooms so that teachers can print documents and prepare for classes, have lunch, whatever they need to do to prepare. There are also special ed spaces, classrooms and workrooms that are integrated into that classroom cluster or team-based curriculum. We also have technology in this 4th wing. We have technology workshops and classrooms. We have mechanical spaces and a receiving area. The plan is divided into public and academic areas by the lobby. This is again, the bus entrance here, the parent pickup entrance here. This will be a skylit space, a 2-story space connecting those 2 entrances and dividing the public spaces on the right side, the gymnasium and the cafeteria auditorium, from the academic spaces and administrative areas here. On the 2nd floor, one comment, Safety Advisory Committee, we worked with them also. They were involved in developing the vestibule, which is much like the high school now, where you go into a locked vestibule. You'll communicate with somebody in the general office, and they will then allow you buzz you into the school. The 2nd floor, as I mentioned, the classroom wings are much like the 1st floor. This is a mirror image of the upper one. We have the media center, another computer classroom, student toilets, and again, the 2-story lobby here. Typical classrooms, about 900 square feet. That's about the size of your largest classroom now at Swanson Road. That's mandated by MSBA. Each classroom will have some built-in millwork. We'll have bookshelves, open bookshelves along the exterior wall underneath these 3 large windows. We'll have operable windows. There's also some millwork for teacher storage, teacher wardrobe, and larger items, things like large format paper and that sort of thing. There are communicating doors. That was another request of the Safety Advisory Committee, and those will have locking hardware as well. So in the event of a soft or hard lockdown, both that door and the entry door into the classroom can be locked quickly. Technology-wise, the classrooms will be equipped with overhead LCD projectors and whiteboards. Everything will flow over the Ethernet cabling system in the building. We also have some renderings. Some of these you've seen, others are newer. This is the front of the building as you enter from West Street. This is the bus loop here, and we have the main entrance. We have the gymnasium on the left, administration and media center above, and then the classroom wing to the right. And this lower rendering is from the multi-use field, looking toward the rear entrance of the school here. This would be the parent pickup line along here. We have the cafeteria. We have kind of an outdoor paved area with some fixed seating there, so that can be utilized in nicer weather. This is just a closer view of the main entry here with canopies. We have some canopies along the gym as well for protection during inclement weather. And again, the closer view of the rear of the building with the cafeteria and secondary entrance here. This is a view looking at the band room. And then this is the view from the second floor, classrooms looking down into the outdoor classroom area. We have some fixed semicircular seating, and again, we have access from the classrooms at front on that courtyard. This is a 3D rendering animation. We're coming in over the Randall building here, so looking at the main entrance. This is where the buses would queue up along here. Main entrance, gymnasium on the left, and media center and administrative area. Now we're coming out over view of the band room here, locker rooms over here. This is the kitchen service area. Now we're coming around over the multi-use field, and this is that outdoor plaza area with the secondary entrance here, and again the main lobby, skylit from above, cafeteria on the right, and then back over the academic wings, and coming around toward the courtyard now, you'll get a view of the outdoor classroom and these greenhouse windows in the science classrooms. With that, I'll turn things over to Paul Newton.
Good evening. Quite a few years back, many communities built their own schools. There was very minimal policies, procedures, or regulations throughout the state. Resulted in the state being a little over $14.7 billion in debt related to school construction. In 2004, the state put in a moratorium. It went into effect, stopped all construction, and they created what is known as the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA. MSBA paid off that debt and then created these new policies, procedures, regulations, and things that are now being used throughout the different communities in the building of their schools. Their main focus is developing or funding affordable, sustainable, and efficient schools throughout the communities of the Commonwealth. They've also created what's known as ProPay. ProPay is a new system where, as design, development, and construction of a project happens, the contractors will submit their payments, for instance, to Auburn. Auburn would turn around, pay the contractors, submit these requisitions to the state, and the state will reimburse their portion of the project within 14 days. This helps many communities not carry the burden or the financial burdens of the project as they go through one. What you're looking at here is a project schedule. It's developed. This is what MSBA is using presently as we go through this process. Some of the key factors that are on this, I know it's hard to see, is here. On April the 3rd, we'll be going to MSBA Board of Directors meeting, at which point they will approve this project to go forward. Once that happens, it will come back to Auburn. On May the 7th, it'll go in front of the town meeting. Once it passes there, on May the 21st, there'll be a ballot vote. When and if it passes at the ballot vote, we would immediately go into design development and the construction documents, focusing on starting construction in April of 2014 and having the project or the school completed and open for the fall 2015 school year. A lot of people have asked us what happens or what are the procedures if this project does not go forward. What you're looking at in front of you here is the actual policy statements from MSBA. A Cliff Note version of this, if I can explain to you, is once the Board of Directors on April the 3rd approves your project, Auburn will have 120 days to approve this. If at that point it does not pass at Auburn, they will have to submit some documents. It will go back to MSBA for their look over. But ultimately what will happen is you will go to the end of the line and you'll have to wait to be invited back through a statement of interest. So you're starting from scratch. Right now there's a little over 1,000 statements of interest through other communities that are looking for funding or for projects from MSBA. What you're looking at here is a projected or a total project cost of $54.5 million. That I wanted to note on is including a little over $5.7 million worth of contingencies. It also has a lot of things included into that budget for anything that we think may or possibly, that we hope would never happen, but could happen, to ensure that all costs are covered in this total project. You're looking at a 20-year financing at a 3% bond rate. Then what you're looking at here then is you're able to look at the residential property valuation. You're able to determine what the valuation of your property is and what the impact of your tax impact would be at, again, a 20-year bond at 3%. Right now, your average single-family valuation for a home here in Auburn is $222.5 thousand. Your first annual cost for your first year of construction would be $46. Your second year would be $52. In years 3 through 20, the remaining balance of the bond would be $175. Again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is if all of the total project budget is spent. Here is just showing two interactive project websites where the public has access to the documents that Dr. Brunel was pointing on at the beginning of this presentation. Anyone can go to it. It states all of the documents that have been included in this entire process from day one, bringing you up to today. You have the ability to ask questions anonymously. They will be answered. And to look at, again, all documents set forth within this project. With this kind of brings the presentation to a close, or at least our part, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments that you may have.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Actually, thanks to some school committee, all sorts of folks here that need to be acknowledged, so acknowledge yourself, and thank you all for coming. This is very important. I'm going to, Dr. Brunel, I'm going to open this up to questions, and we're just going to let this discussion go in various circles around this, basically as much time as we need to make sure that we're all pretty comfortable with it and have these questions answered. I'll open this up to anyone with questions at this point in time. I'm going to start at the end. Kim?
This is probably more for Dr. Brunel than it is for your counterparts there. I understand I've gotten a copy of some documents that are flying around town right now, and I have actually a question for the committee, because there's a statement out there that says that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have previously voted or previously committed to funding this project through excess levy instead of a debt exclusion vote. Since I've only been here for a year and a half, I know I've been a town meeting member for a long time, at least 20 years. I know the town meeting has never made that kind of a vote. Is there a vote by this committee or that's from the past that supported strictly a excess levy funding?
Absolutely not, and I believe some of that discussion that come up is when we put ourselves in I'll say, a strategically good path to not use all of our 2.5% levy availability. It quickly became apparent, and it's still apparent, that the ability to raise tax money, actually raise tax dollars, is different than actually raising the money. Right now, we've got several percentage points of excess levy capacity. We haven't actually raised $1 of that. There's just an ability for the town to do that, and I'll say singularly, I'm hoping that's only to be used on an emergency basis. I believe there is a little bit of confusion with what went on with the Bay Path funding final decisions with that passing, and I'd like to keep that as a separate discussion point. We're still trying to sort that out. But certainly for school projects and any projects that we're planning, capital projects, and that's capital with an AL, these things we plan, we understand what our tax base, our taxpayers can pay, and the intent of this committee, I think collectively, and I'm sure the Board of Selectmen, is put it before the voters, let them decide on this, let them make the decision based on presentations like this, questions and answer sessions like this. To get long-winded, and I don't mind doing it in this case, we have enough time to analyze what we need to do as a town, what we need to do to invest in the town. We don't need to go to excess levy capacity unless for some reason a storm came through and this roof came off at one point in time, and we've got 3 months to try to rebuild it. To me, that would be a good temporary use for excess levy until we come up with a better funding solution. The intent is not to rely on those funds at any point in time, and frankly, I personally consider them, guess what, we didn't need to use that money, and I wish actually Ed didn't have to address our excess levy capacity. We've been trying to fund our operations here at 1.25%, 1.5%, plus whatever CIP issues and those things that come up, and they certainly add to it. But excess levy, to me, is hopefully we'll never have to rely on those for funds in the future. And we're clear on that here, and I know with this committee, and I believe the committees I've served on the last 15 years, seems like 30, I don't believe we've ever committed or even talked to using those funds for a project that's been planned. And thanks for bringing that up, just to be clear.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of confusion and stuff flying around out in the general public, and it's municipal finance can be very tricky and confusing, and I understand it, I think, pretty well, but if I do understand it, I notice on here that you have the maximum annual loan payment, that's, I'm assuming, principal and interest, in any given year is 1.6 million. 1,600,000. That would be the amount that over the 20 years of the loan, that would be the most in any one year. I know it fluctuates.
Correct.
The beginning ones are much lower, and the ending ones are lower, and it's the middle chunk that are the highest. So this 1.6 would be the most that the town would have to pay for principal and interest in the highest years of repayment.
Correct.
Just like on our house mortgages.
Sure.
In the beginning, you pay higher, and in the end, you pay more towards the principal and less in interest.
Sure.
That 1.6 is the amount of money that the town of Auburn would have to come up with every year in the operating budget to pay for this expense. We're not raising that money now. So whether it was by debt exclusion, which is a one-time thing, you raise it for the 20 years, and when the project is done, it comes off the levy, and it's gone.
Correct.
If you took the 1.6 out of excess levy, which is the amount that's available, first off, the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee don't appropriate that, the town meeting does. The taxpayers don't vote for that, the town meeting does. So 120 people make that decision, as opposed to the whole I think I'm right there. But the 1.6 is the same. It's going to cost me as a taxpayer $180 according to these numbers, whether it's excess levy or debt exclusion. It
Correct.
doesn't matter.
Correct.
You still have to raise that 1.6. So anybody who says that excess levy is the way to go and it's not going to cost you money doesn't understand the process, because it's still going to cost you. It's just two different ways of funding it. But that 1.6 in excess levy would technically be, we'd be raising that forever. It becomes your levy limit forever, because once you raise it once, as opposed to a debt exclusion where it would go away at the end of the process. Once you raise it once, it's your levy.
Correct.
Right? Am I right?
You're 100% correct.
Okay, so to me, it seems illogical for the town to even think about using excess levy for a project like this. It's too much money, and there's no benefit. In fact, as a taxpayer, the benefit is to do the debt exclusion, because at least when the 20 years is up, it's gone. I'm retiring that debt, and I'm not going to keep raising that money. They'd have to go and vote to re-raise it for something else. Where excess levy, once you raise it, it's there every year. So I just want confirmation that I'm correct and I'm understanding the process correctly.
If I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. Sorry I'm late. My daughter had to play at school, and it's something I couldn't miss. What I heard is absolutely right. Certainly a debt exclusion vote, and this, all options, let me put it this way, all options were discussed on numerous occasions at several joint meetings that we had. We identified excess levy as an option. We identified a debt exclusion option. The vote was to send it to the voters as a debt exclusion vote. There's a guarantee under that scenario that the debt would be retired, assuming we go out for a 20-year period, which I believe was presented tonight. We do have the flexibility of going to 25 or 30 years, but we believe it would not be in the town's best interest to go out for a longer term than 20 years, because you would be pouring money back into the facility before you pay off the debt of the original construction. But under the 20-year purpose, you're raising every year, if this vote should pass at the ballot, by ballot vote, you're raising a sum of money, I believe equivalent to $1.6 million a year for a period of 20 years. At the end of the 20 years, when that debt is retired, as Kim indicated, that falls off of your levy. You no longer have to raise it. Under the debt exclusion vote, you have to raise that amount of money through taxation, whether it be debt exclusion or excess levy. That value is the same. That's not going to change. Let's be clear. That's going to be a tax rate increase, either option. Same value. But at the end of 20 years, that levy is still being raised. So unless you cut the budget by that amount of money, even though the debt is retired, that value could be assumed either for additional debt, or it could be assumed for operational side of the budget, could be assumed for a number of things. There's no guarantee. Let's face it, I'm not going to be around in 20 years. Town manager's not going to be around in 20 years. Once that debt is retired, if it's paid through the excess levy, there's no guarantee that that value is going to go back to the taxpayers. Under the debt exclusion vote, that's a guarantee.
So what that'll mean is at that point in time, the subsequent management of the town will be making that strategic decision on whether, hey, look, we've used this money for capital, blah, blah, blah. There's no guaranteeing saying they won't come up with another project. In fact, we're still behind, I think, generally on the schools, that there may be other capital projects behind what's going on or what we're trying to do here. That's a decision that can be made in 20 years. But there is some surety that when the project is complete and hopefully on budget, then that tax effect, the tax dollars, will go away. And that's why we chose, well, it's one of two reasons why we prefer debt exclusion. The second is, let the town taxpayers decide this. It's going to be their building, and, we'll just move forward with that. And if they don't move forward with it, then we will have to come up with another plan on taking care of the students to the best efforts we can fiscally. Kim, any other questions? And I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thanks. Just one question.
Sure.
Are there plans for the existing building?
The school committee created a school building master plan team in November, and that group consists of about 20 representatives of school, community, and parents, and we've been meeting regularly. We actually have a meeting on Tuesday the 2nd to vote and approve, hopefully, the final report, bringing that recommendation to the school committee. So at that time, we'll be presenting it, but I can tell you that the consensus at this point is to keep it as a school building, and the consensus is also to use it as a grades 3 to 5 building. Still to be determined which schools would come offline, but the students from Julia Bancroft and Packagug would attend what would be an updated Auburn Middle School.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Okay. I know Chris has his hand. Mike, anything from? Okay, Chris?
The excess levy option also wouldn't require a vote of the town meeting, correct?
Excess levy would go to the town meeting members.
I mean,
'Cause
it wouldn't require a vote of the entire town.
No.
You mentioned, just on the cost point, and earlier we mentioned the 50 chip points, getting an additional 2%. What is the cost with getting those additional 50 chip points versus not achieving that goal? That's that question I wanted to know. How much more is it costing us to be green
Sure.
versus not getting that 2%?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Moore, but before I do, I do want to recognize Mr. Page, who's here from SBC and School Committee, as well as the school committee members asked that I apologize, those who couldn't be here tonight due to work commitments. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Moore.
I'm going to have a very hard time answering that question. I don't have an exact figure for it, and I think it's partly because the Mass CHIPS points are so varied. They affect so many different things, everything from site, even for policies, things like having a policy to buy Energy Star appliances. You get points for that. You get points for not air conditioning classrooms. So we're dehumidifying classrooms. We're going to make the classrooms more comfortable during those days in September and June. But we don't have air conditioning, and therefore we get points for that. So I can't really tell you. It's hard to say. There's no exact dollar figure per se.
So from a financial standpoint, I mean, I understand the need to be green, don't get me wrong. But, so, just because we're getting an additional 2% back, I got to imagine there's a cost behind this. I think that needs to come out in this conversation. I mean, I want to know. I mean, I'm also a town email. I'd like to know too.
Well,
I mean, if you can't answer tonight, that's fine, and I'm not
I guess-
pushing you, but I'd like an answer at some point. Maybe another town meeting or something, because I can sit up and ask that question at town meeting, but I'd like to know.
I think we could look at certain facets of that and say this, this is to achieve the points for this particular category, you're spending X amount. But in terms of a holistic, this is a dollar figure to achieve Mass CHIPS compliance and get those two reimbursement points.
If it's
I'm
going
not
to
sure
cost us more than the 2% reimbursement, then why get the 50 points? Outside of the benefit of being
Well,
green.
the benefit is that you'll have a more efficient building. You'll have a building that's going to cost less, for one thing, to maintain.
But it's going to cost us more to build it.
There may be
Compared
an
to
initial
2%.
cost to build it that way. For instance, we are proposing, and this doesn't really affect this doesn't get into the Mass CHIPS so much, but we're proposing as an add alternate a geothermal well system for this project. So that would heat and cool various parts of the building, things like the administration areas, the the media center, the cafeteria. These are areas that will be used year-round, so they need to be heated and cooled. So there's an upfront cost for that, and we're proposing it as an ad alternate, so it's not built into the project. If there's money in the budget to afford that feature, you'll have the option to select it. But there's about a 10-year payback, so you'll be able to identify that feature. That's about as I recall, that was under $300,000. But in 10 years, 9 or 10 years, you've paid that back, and over the years following that, you're going to reap the savings of that. So you're not going to be you won't be paying the higher cost to heat and cool that building.
Like I said, I'd really like to know what, if that's something we can get between now and town meeting, I'd like to know what that cost is. I mean, it needs to be part of the equation. Just like we need to know how much it's gonna cost us to fix up, if required, the old junior high school. That's all part of the whole equation. I know we're all focused on this one building here, but we need to take all costs in mind.
We can break down some of those costs and give you a best guesstimate. But again, like what Eric was stating, a lot of the points and stuff would be equivalent to us making sure that the wood for this project comes within 500-mile radius of the project. Does it really have a cost impact? Probably not. So for us to pull numbers and extract that on a total project budget that it's not been bid yet at this time, we can give you an average, but I don't think we could give you a definite number.
So where's the
that you're
benefit
asking.
to being green then, outside of, I mean, if there's no financial benefit then?
Financial benefit of green, though, is let's say the wood's coming within 500 miles. Instead of bringing it across seas or bringing it from California, you're looking at, the transportation, the gases, everything that's being spent within the community or within the world, green. But cost impact, and many of these things, there is no increase to the project. But what I can do is a lot of the areas that are identified where it does mandate certain materials or building certain ways of building, I can identify those for you and try to extract that cost for you.
My guess is that's the best you're going to be able to do on that. I mean, we'll see a cost, and you can measure that against our savings. And then, as you mentioned earlier, there's some cash flow savings as you go forward.
I think the other thing we can do is we can give you the Mass Chips scorecard, and that's a listing of every category and what we're trying to achieve. And we've broken it down into, yes, we're definitely going to achieve this point. Maybe we're going to achieve this point, or no, we're not going to achieve this point. So we can certainly make that available to you, and we can identify as best we can certain categories within that will have impact, cost impact. Try and identify those for you.
Okay. One more question. I know we talked about this recently. Is there going to be video cameras like there are now? I know we have them all up there and
There will be.
throughout town.
Yes.
It wasn't part of the.
Yes, there will be interior and exterior. That was part of the discussions with the safety advisory team.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ed,
I
anything?
have one quick
Sure,
question to it.
absolutely.
And it might have been presented in the prior meeting, so I apologize if you mentioned it, but the 3% bond rate, is that pretty much established, a solid number?
Actually, I'll turn that to Mr. Kazanovich if he,
Yeah, actually, we had some pretty lengthy discussions about that. I can tell you it's a conservative number. We went out for approximately $9 million back about a month ago, 2 months ago. Our rate for that bond issue net was about 1.7%. So we believe 3% would allow for any fluctuations in the market by the time we go out. We also are positioning ourselves hopefully for an increase in our bond rating, which will help drive down that rate as well. We believe, we're hopeful that our next go-around, after we close out the fiscal year, will show, once again, significant improvements in our financial position. Hopefully enough to the extent where they will consider us for a AA2. So we believe right now 3% is a conservative number, given the rates that we're recognizing right now.
I had one follow-up question. As far as what's going to be done with the current middle school, that will be presented town meeting floor.
What will be presented at town meeting floor is the recommendation, and assuming school committee approves it next week, it will be presented at town meeting floor, yes.
I think that's an important piece that really has to be talked about.
I agree.
It has to be out in the open. I guess to be consistent, I'll hop on my tax rate bit right now. And I've opened this up. I did not see the selectmen presentation the other night, so I don't know if any of this was brought up, but there has to be some talk about the strategic plan of the town, which, as I've said before, is going towards a single tax rate, and what we have as far as Bay Path, what we have as far as the middle school coming up. It's an important vote. Bay Path, we really don't have any choice, so we get what we get. Water and sewer rates going up, which is going to be directly to the taxpayers. I just think at some point, it would be nice before town meeting to have the discussion, or even on town meeting floor if they would like, what the strategic plan is looking forward. Now, I know tax classification is usually not until October or November. That's after the fact. That's after the vote. And I just think that there has to be some talk about what the plan is for the town before this goes to the vote of the town. And I've said it at many meetings, I'll say it again if I have to, but I have not heard anybody actually address it.
I don't know that that's
It's a general-
something that I can address for you, respectfully.
Ed, if you want
If
to.
I may, can I take a swing at that? I can't speak for the board, but I know that's one of the reasons why we actually presented some financial policies. It's basically a long-term roadmap for the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen to follow. I can tell you that there is no long-term strategic plan relative to the tax rate. I think the Board of Selectmen will tell you that they would look at this annually. They're looking for times of opportunity to make that shift when they can minimize the impact on the taxpayer. For instance, last year, when they made that shift, the taxpayers actually, we were raising less levy that year than we were the year before, which meant a 0% increase on the taxpayers if you were to eliminate that shift. That's one of the reasons why they're not taxing at 2.5, because they're trying to balance both at the same time. Move towards that single tax rate, minimize the increase in taxation annually, when most communities, quite honestly, are taxing at 2.5. So we've had at-length discussions with the board. Board has been very, I think they've been very vocal by way of having a discussion on the financial policies. It puts parameters in place, it establishes benchmarks, and quite honestly, I think they would be looking to continue that shift when there's significant times of new growth that's going to offset any increase to the taxpayer.
You know, all I'm really looking for is maybe there's a commitment somewhere before the vote of the town that the selectmen and administration is going to hold the tax rate for this year. I don't think that that's asking a whole lot, but I understand that the classification is until after the town vote and town meeting. It's not until the fall. I think it goes a long way if there was some commitment. That's my thoughts. I've had this same thought since we met early on talking about the plan for the middle school, and it just seemed to be, it seemed to be in conflict with what the fiscal plan was that administration has put forward. And I understand that moving to a single tax rate doesn't happen in 1 year, probably doesn't happen until like a 5-year cycle. But it would be nice to know that there's some commitment by the selectmen or administration that they're going to hold the rates where they are, at least for this year would be nice. That's it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
No, hey, consistent, and I certainly respect your thoughts on that. And I'll respect anyone's thoughts, even if you're disagreeing or agreeing on this, that this is open here for our committee. And questions or comments?
Yeah, a question for Ed, please. Can you discuss I hate to bring up the subject again, can you discuss the impact of putting this project in spending, paying for inside the levy limit versus outside when it comes to our bond ratings, and what the bonding agency how they would view that?
Good question. I can tell you, we raised this with our rating agency when we went for a rating review, just before our borrowing a month or two ago. Because we saw it on the radar screen, we knew it was a consideration being made by not only the Finance Committee, School Committee, and the Board of Selectmen. They would prefer that we do it through a debt exclusion, for a number of reasons. Number one, you're going to erode a portion of your excess levy and reduce that financial stability if, in fact, we should go through some turbulent times again, and there's a shrinking revenue and with no place to go. But at the same time, they're looking at what the town's financial policies are in terms of increasing those reserves as well as tax levy in future years. They would have no problem if we used excess levy as a one-time capital need. So if we raised it in year one, it becomes available in year two. That's not going to impact our rating. A number of things come into play. Certainly, that's one of them. Would it impact our rating? It could. Would it if other things held their own? I don't know. I can't say. There's so much that goes into that decision. But $1.6 million is a large chunk of what we currently have in our excess levy. So at this point in time, I'll tell you one thing, it wouldn't allow us to go to a AA2. We may be able to maintain a AA3. In terms of a downgrade, I couldn't answer that question right now.
Can I, to continue on that, and so the benefit of having a AA rating instead of a AA3 is that we would probably pay less in interest, correct?
That's a certainty. You would pay less, by way of borrowing, you would pay less for borrowing bond proceeds.
And that would be significant over a 20-year period, a 20-year bond, correct?
That would be very significant.
All right.
It would be thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can tell you, we did an analysis on the high school at a rate when we borrowed for the high school, and we actually got a downgrade shortly after we borrowed that money. The savings as a result of that shift was projected to be about $700,000 over the term of that borrowing.
It's a big chunk. Thank you.
All set?
All set, thank you.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
To you, Ed, or maybe Dr. Bernal, if by, say, we spend $1.6 million, I'm just using that number because it came out tonight, would that go toward our required net, the minimum amount of money we're required to spend towards education in the town? Does that go towards that?
No.
Net school spending?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Let's try that.
Why not?
Nice. I like that attitude.
Why not?
Well, we do
Congressman.
have to report that as a school-related expense, and I know Dan is very familiar with that because he goes through that exercise every year, and believe me, it takes quite a bit of work, and he does a great job at it. But no, when we determine our support costs for the schools, that's not part of the calculation. No, it is an educational expense in terms of total allocation of townwide budget. We do take that into consideration. But no, in terms of net school spending, capital costs are not part of that calculation.
I disagree.
Actually, Ed, then Mike. Ed, go ahead.
Ed, this question might be for you. Just had a question on MSBA. Now, not to assume the state would ever back out, but is their funding federally guaranteed that if something happens in the economy, can they back out of that deal 5-10 years down the road? Do we know?
I've been involved in MSBA for 25 years, and we borrowed significant amount of money, up to $300 million in Lowell, and back then, they used to distribute that to the cherry sheet. That's an obligation that they've always honored. I think there was one year they may have deferred a payment because of a financial situation, but they've always made it up. No, once that's locked in, giving you a history of what I know, they've never reneged on that.
I just had a fast question, Ed. If the interest rate on the bond goes from the projected 3 to 2, the $175 per taxpayer goes down by how much? Rough idea?
No, but we can run those models at a lower rate, and we can provide that number to you. I couldn't even venture a guess. It wouldn't be fair if I threw a number out there.
Do you have an answer to that?
I was
Do we guess
basically
so?
going to, he took the
Because
words out.
that's huge on the amount of debt you're going to be taking.
It would be a
That's huge
significant-
savings, so that would be, I think, a good reduction.
I think what we can do is we can run those numbers at our latest yield of, say, 1.7 to show what that would be, just for a basis of comparison.
I think the
Again, I think it-
1.6 per year drops to something around 1.4, so it's a 200,000, almost 300,000.
But again, when you're presenting
Per
this to
year.
the taxpayers, I think it's a benefit if they see that it's not 175, maybe it's 160, 150, I don't know, but that kind of reduction in interest
Right.
is significant when people in the town are looking at that. Again, a credit to what the town's done as far as fiscal management, that you're at those rates, so there's a real benefit.
And yet, it could swing the other way. I mean,
But if you're going to be
but
out doing
it's
this-
all relative. I mean, we're taking a snapshot in time. It's impossible to predict what the market is going to be like. I mean, I think with certainty, they can look out 6 months and be pretty
Right.
close. Beyond that, we can only hope that the rates remain low.
What would be our time frame for permanent financing?
Well, I think the date of, certainly if the project gets approved, there's a value of money that will be required to do the design and engineering to get this bid ready. And I think that was identified tonight in year one. That's why the cost is so low. So we're only going to borrow as much money as we need to get that phase completed. As we move along, we have to, and certainly, we're not going to know until this thing is bid to get a cash flow of the total project cost. But it's a 2-year construction time period?
We're probably looking at 16 months in all reality.
16 months. So the lion's share of that, we're going to need, probably, construction would commence roughly a year from now?
We could actually start breaking ground in late fall of this year.
Okay. So that's when the cash flow begins. They're going gangbusters, they're ordering materials, they're doing construction, site work. So we would make that decision based upon the rates at that time. We may decide that we may want to go out and borrow, if it's a 16-month period, we could borrow roughly 16 months just when construction begins. We could borrow the whole ball of wax, we could decide to ban it because the rates are really low. Whatever makes financial sense to the town, we would analyze at that time.
Any other questions or comments? I've just got a couple of quick comments. Just a reminder that, I went to the Auburn Junior High School, same building with a couple of new, I'll say, trailers on the back, and actually, I know they're very nice, having done some things in those. It was designed, I believe, for what should have been no more than 500 people, probably 450, just given the size of the classes back then through whenever it turned into a middle school. So, we can say right now, basically, we kind of built that thing out as best we could, and now it's still somewhat overcrowded. I know we've reconfigured and added on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really inadequate for 3 grades. I believe the new school, if I heard correctly from the other night, approximately 660, 665 students? Am I
It's enrollment projection of 560 students.
560?
And the new building will be a little over 100,000 square feet.
Okay, which is a 35 to 40% increase in size, correct?
Absolutely. It's about, the current building is about 55,000 square feet, so almost double.
Instead of 2 tiny gyms, we're going to have 1 adequate-sized gym.
Full regulation size gym, yes.
Will I'll call it the theater, will there be room for having the whole school together for, events? It's something that couldn't be done even way back in the 70s.
Sure, there are 2 gathering areas. There's the cafeteria that has the stage, which will have an operable partition so they can use it for a music class, but the gym would likely be the area where they would put all school students, and we do have the telescopic bleachers that would be there, so there would be ample seating in there.
Okay. And I guess the only other point I'd like to make very clear on this anyways, part of what we look at is also the CIP for the schools in the whole town, which goes out 5 years. Now, we've talked about targeting 2 schools, and I know none of this is really in ink, it's all in pencil right now, but I just did some quick calculations. Our CIP, which I know is really throwing darts at the wall for Julie Bancroft and Mary D. Stone School from fiscal 15 through fiscal year 20, we're at right now, we're going to spend at least $1.2 million in maintenance. And there were a couple of big numbers in there. My guess is those were roofs and those kind of things that will probably need to be addressed in a short period of time. So as part of this project, as Jim said, let's not lose sight of there will probably be some sort of project behind it in terms of hopefully some kind of rehab to the middle school. And let's not lose sight that if we move everything over to a new middle school, then we'll be able to do that rehab without upsetting student life in the elementary schools until that's done, if we go that far down the road. And I think we've had some side conversations, just based on some of the estimates, if we were to rebuild at the middle school or do some rehabbing there, in terms of the numbers were significantly less than 10 million identified to do some sort of significant rehab. And I know I'm throwing loose numbers around. So more to Jim's point, look, there's a bigger plan here that we'll have to follow through on. There's no doubt about it. We are still ignoring our oldest schools, our most in-need schools on it. My last comment is, I was part of the committee that brought on Dr. Brunel back 5 years ago?
It was.
5 years ago.
Yes.
And part of what that committee wanted to do is basically, hey, look, we want to have a superintendent in place that's going to be around for a while and do some forward-thinking things, because the schools, basically capital needs were basically in dire straits. We've gotten to that point now where we've gotten to the next stage on this. I've personally been advocating for this, and as chairman of this committee, I've got to kind of step back from that to a degree. But basically, this is part of a bigger plan that started several years ago, and I know Mary Ellen, you and I had a side conversation that in the back of our minds, this seemed like a logical thing to do over some period of time. And hopefully I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, this is, certainly, I think it's due to the hard work of many, certainly SBC. This group here has been working for at least 3 years, and some members carried over from the high school. And none of this could be possible, obviously, without the support of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, and hopefully with the support of the Auburn voters. I think that this is, as the SBC set out, is truly an educationally appropriate, state-of-the-art facility that'll educate our students for middle school students for decades to come, but it's also a fiscally sound project. So I thank you sincerely for your support and look forward to it in the future as well.
Great. I appreciate your time. What I would like to do, and I'm going to at least temporarily put the board on the spot, we may or may not choose to at least take a decision to support the project at this time. I know we've taken some voice votes on this before. The next time we're going to see this will be warrant articles supporting this, right, Ed? And I'm not asking anyone to support a warrant article we don't have in front of us, but if our committee so chooses, we're in front of TV cameras and in front of the town here in terms of continuing our support for this, or we may choose not to vote to do that at this point in time. I'll put that out there. Does anyone have an opinion on that? Chris?
I think I said it earlier, I think I'd like to hear, see the complete picture before the committee vote, just my opinion.
Okay, that's fine. I will caution you, though, that opinion is going to have to come in form of vote by the time we have the warrant articles ready, correct?
That's fine, but we'll have more information by then.
Okay. So if we could, by the time which is 2-3 weeks, that we vote on the warrant articles, if we could have some additional information to try to address, Chris's concerns.
Sure.
Cost-benefit analysis, which I thought was a good point.
I'm also mentioning you mentioned taking a vote on what to do with the old school. I'd like to hear that too, as far as potential costs, high, low, whatever. I think it needs to be part of the conversation.
Well, there may not be, I'm going to take some words out of your mouth.
Okay.
You may not have an opinion yet.
Correct.
From the school committee, and certainly respect that. We can't push that anyways, but at least at that point, you'll have a formal, I'll say, presentation to the school committee. That's going to happen in the next week.
Correct.
So at least we'll see where, in a more concrete way, where the school buildings committee or subcommittee is going relative to the old junior high school. Okay, Kim?
I don't agree with Chris. I'd like to make a motion for the Finance Committee to support a debt exclusion question on the town meeting warrant for the May, whatever the date is, town meeting, for the middle school.
Okay, my only point for holding off on this is we'll certainly have that opportunity to do it. We've been presented with a lot of information tonight, some of which we've had before, and a few other questions on that. I don't feel a need to press everyone to basically, make their decision known right now. I think it's pretty obvious where I feel on it, and some other people. So if people want to express their opinion, that's fine. I do want to take a vote on it collectively, and then I do want to take a vote on those warrant articles at the appropriate time.
Can I just respond? I'm not saying no, I just want to see all the costs, and what's the hurry? Why can't we just do it before town meeting? Make our recommendation before town meeting, where we have all potential information, this is a pretty big commitment we're making. That's all. I'm not saying, what's the difference between making a commitment tonight versus making it on town meeting floor that day? We're going to make a recommendation either way.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Burnham. Sorry, I mean to.
Through the chair, Mr. Haroyan, as I understand it, you'd like a cost-benefit analysis regarding the green school, what it's costing us, and as Mr. Moore and Mr. Needler said, we'll do our best to provide that. We can certainly provide you with the green worksheet, but I don't want anyone to leave with the misunderstanding that I'm going to have for you what a cost would be to rehab the middle school. I will not have that, so I don't want anyone to think that.
I'm just sort of wondering where we're headed with this project, because again, I'm going to assume there's going to be a cost associated with that next step, and I think that needs to be part of the overall discussion. We're all focused on building that new school, great, fine, but I'm going to bring this up because I'll sort of remember it, but I remember that $500,000 we spent when Pappas, Mr. Pappas, Dr. Pappas gave us that extra money, we made the gym bigger. Well, this committee had to come up with an extra $500,000. When we took that vote, I didn't know about that. So I want to know about all the outside costs associated with this project, whether they're tangible, not tangible, potential. I want to know all that information before we make a recommendation. And I'm just saying, too, we might be better suited to make that before town meeting rather than tonight, because I don't think we have all the costs in mind, or what direction you want to take it with the old building. Because there's going to be a cost, and we need to sort of understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair, MSBA has been very clear with us that the vote that would be taken would be for the middle school project only. So while the work is ongoing with this master plan team, I think that long after this gets approved, there is I anticipate that the master plan team will vote favorably for this on Tuesday and bring it before the school committee next week. But cost estimates will not readily be available. And in fact, MSBA has very vehemently cautioned us to be sure that they stay as two separate and distinct issues.
So Chris, if the best that can be provided to us is I'll call it a vision statement or some direction, then that's what we're gonna have to work with
Sure.
for everyone to take a vote on this.
And what
Some of us, I'm sure, can take a vote tonight, and like I said, I wanted to make sure everyone was in a position to do that. Go ahead, I
Understood.
interrupted
Nope,
you.
I'm all set, thank you.
Jim?
I just wanted to go over the timeline. The recommendation for the current middle school is going to school committee next week, or?
There'll be a vote of the master plan team on Tuesday, and depending on the result of that vote, it could go to them as early as the 3rd, otherwise it will go on April 10th. There are 2 meetings in April.
And how is that going to get communicated to, say, other committees, or the selectmen, or anything like that?
I would be happy to provide a report to any of the committees. We will certainly be, once it gets approved, the intention would be to post it on the website along with all other Auburn Middle School-related documents on our website.
When would we be voting on warrant articles? Approximately.
Middle of April?
Probably not next week, but the week after, I'm gonna say. Or the
Be like
week
the
after that.
9th or 10th?
Between those next 2 weeks, the 11th.
So there might be
Seventh,
some
that's the
time
one.
in there that we can take a vote
Oh,
before the
absolutely.
warrant articles.
Yeah,
That's-
absolutely. Once again, I think respectfully, you should be making whatever presentation to the school committee. There is absolutely no pressure from us on the school committee to act on that, but at least we'll know from the subcommittee's point of view what the vision is and whatever details may come of that.
Sure.
And that, I think, is the best that we can ask for relative to, I'll say, reuse of the old junior high school.
And I will be happy to return to any meeting and share that information, as likely will the master plan team as well.
Okay, great, thank you. So at this point, we won't take a vote on that.
That's fine.
That's fine, and it's fair to having as complete information as possible on that. So, thank you very much for the presentation on that. Unless there's any other comments, we'll move along to the budget on that. Appreciate your time, and I guess your roadshow goes on for a little longer?
If you'd like me to, it does.
I meant to other groups. You've got some other dates planned for this?
Oh, it does, I'm sorry, yes, I thought you were saying tonight's roadshow.
Well, the only reason why I'm bringing that up is
I
I
appreciate-
assume you're going to have some room out there for public comment on that?
Absolutely. We actually, I appreciate that, Mr. Hussey. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at Auburn High School in the auditorium, there will be another public forum on this that the community is invited to attend. Next week, we have 2 on both Tuesday and Thursday evenings, both at 7:30. That will be taking place. And I'd also point out to the Finance Committee and those who are listening that on our website, there is a question and answer section. As Mr. Needler said, post the question, and we will post the answer for it as well. So we encourage the back and forth dialogue, so thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And design team, architects, engineers, thank you. It was a great presentation. Appreciate that. All right, so let's move on to the school budget.
The other, if I may, Mr. Moore has just reminded me that all of the projected costs are listed on the webpage. It is 600-plus pages that are provided there, so they are up there as well, but we can certainly summarize that for everyone.
That's great. Now, before you begin on the school budget request on that, I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge a great relationship we've had with your business manager, Dan Deedy, who's moving on to a much bigger role in one of the North County schools. And Dan, thanks for several years of providing a lot of great information and feedback to this committee, making our job a little bit easier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. As I had said in the newspaper article, Auburn will always have a special place in my heart. This was my first opportunity as a school business administrator, and as I had mentioned earlier, you're kind of to blame for this. If you recall, in my presentation of 2006, I guess I made an impression, and that remained with one of your members, and he observed me from afar throughout the years. So it has been an honor and a privilege to work with you and serve you, but also the students of the Auburn Public Schools. So thank you very much.
Good luck to you. Thanks again. Dr. Brunel, what I've done with all the departments is, instead of going really a line-by-line item, especially with your budget, a lot of big numbers, important numbers, but I've allowed I'll say your peers, the department heads, really to provide some color and an overview to whatever detail you want on your particular budgets, areas of concern. Obviously, we can't address all of them, which is normal for the school committee, and I fully respect you guys creating a budget that we can't attain. To me, you could always spend more money, especially on the schools and some other public service areas. So we have to have a limit somewhere, and hopefully we get some better news from Beacon Hill and can maybe rework some of these money requests in the coming weeks. So it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to present to you the FY14 budget for the Auburn Public Schools. As this quote by Ken Blanchard notes, genuine success does not come from proclaiming our values, but from consistently putting them into daily action. What I hope you will see as I go through this budget presentation this evening is the priorities should be highlighted for you of the Auburn Public Schools. Much forward progress has been made over these past several years, that being the result of cumulative efforts from the school committee to the leadership team, certainly the teachers, the students themselves, and their families. Those successes come from our collaborative efforts and our laser-like focus on students and their increasing achievement. The overarching goal that we had was the same as last year, responding to needs based on data. Our core values being safe and respectful environments for all, decision-making that is based on students and what is in their best interests, high expectations for all. Our dedication to continuous improvement permeates all that we do, as well as equitable opportunities for all. Those core values drove our decision-making throughout this budgeting process when we first began it as early ago as back in August of 2012. And actually, we consistently came back to the question of how will this impact students and their achievement. As a group, collectively, school committee and leadership team, we set priorities that would drive our decisions. As noted already, students and their increasing achievement is critically important, as is class size, textbooks, the Auburn Middle School building project, technology, safe environments, our commitment to continuous improvement, high-quality professional development program that has been offered, as well as our commitment to the strategic plan and those plans that focus on both district and school improvement goals. This year represents what we have set as our theme for this school year, strengthening connections through rigor, relevance, and relationship. And I think as you'll see as we go through that the progress that the district has made is mentioned, but also in terms of the fiscal commitment we've had with the town of Auburn really speaks to that commitment to relationships and working together collaboratively. As we always do, we began with assumptions in this budget. The first one being the issue of federal sequestration. We had first had projected a much more negative impact on the federal sequestration, but due to guidance that we've received from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, we were, unfortunately, we had to reduce the offset by $43,000. Hopefully that will be an issue that is tackled soon and resolved. We planned and used for offsets of Medicaid reimbursement of $112,000. Circuit breaker at 60%, which funds, it actually reimburses for extraordinary special education costs for students who have significant special needs. And our school choice levels are at 26 students at the high school and 15 at the middle, which actually represents an increase of 5 students at Auburn High School. Additionally, the bus fee of $100 per student remains in effect, up to a maximum of $250 per family. We've used the Satellite Galaxy Asteroid and preschool revolving accounts as offsets wherever possible in terms of personnel, supplies, and utilities. And also, we were happy to receive news in Governor Patrick's proposed budget back in January that Auburn would realize a Chapter 70 increase of $883,283. As we've done in the past, we took a multi-layered approach and involved many in the development of this budget. The leadership team members actually sought input from their staff in terms of what would be needed in classrooms and departments. Each member then came and defended their budget and their proposal to Mr. Dede, to myself, and to the Director of Teaching, Learning, and Curriculum. And then on several occasions throughout the fall, we met to prioritize, to pair, and to actually come to consensus on what we believed would help to continue us moving forward. This budget, excuse me, does represent a number of new staffing requests that are outlined here for you. A half-time guidance counselor at the high school, a .75 technology assistant to support the .25 position that's currently in place, a half-time French teacher at the middle school, along with a media specialist at our middle school. The only school currently in the Auburn Public Schools who has a librarian in it is the high school. And while we're very fortunate to have many parent volunteers for our libraries, we really are looking to increase that, with literacy being such an integral component of our program. We're looking to put for 1 day a week, we'd share a library media specialist at our 4 elementary schools. 2 counselors at the elementary schools level, they currently share them, so this would actually put 1 full-time person in each of the elementary schools. Special education instructional assistants, we're requesting 2, and that is IEP driven. Increasing the part-time custodian. If you remember, several years ago, we had made cuts in this department, and we have realized that, and I will tell you that one of the additional points that we received from MSBA, in fact, 1.45 additional percentage points from MSBA, was due to the condition that we keep our aging buildings in, which is tremendous kudos to Mr. Fahey and his entire team. That was one of the highest percentage points that MSBA had noted that they had given. The girls ice hockey coach, to fund that position. 9 middle school coaches that are currently paid by the parent organization. 9 high school assistant coaches, and a fitness room stipend. As noted previously, offsets were made in this budget. You'll see throughout, whether it's through school choice funds, Medicaid, any of our revolving accounts, and even building rental accounts. All done in an effort to minimize the impact of the FY14 budget of the Auburn Public Schools. The total budget request is $22,399,397, which represents an increase of 3.14% over the approved rate for FY13, the total being $21,716,587. The next 2 slides provide a bit of a historical perspective in terms of the increases and in year 1, the decrease that the school department's budget has realized. So as you can see, noted by fiscal year, the total budget request, the increase, or as I noted in the first year, the decrease, to show that over a 5-year period, we've actually seen an average annual increase of 1.72%. This document here shows comparatively the amount of Chapter 70 increases that have been realized during that same 5-year period. Last year's being the most substantial of those, being at $1,447,172. A great deal of that as a result of instituting full-day kindergarten, which came with the support certainly of the school committee as well as the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. This just does a quick comparison that in that 5-year period, there has been slightly over $3 million in Chapter 70 increases that the town has realized, yet the total school department's budget has increased $1.8 million, a differential of approximately $1.2 million. Such increases, we believe, reflect the commitment of the Auburn Public Schools to work with the town of Auburn. It truly is a collaborative process. These are challenging times, and I think that the numbers before you this evening speak to the commitment that the school committee made many years ago. Having said all that, it also, the budgets that we've provided allow us to stay true to our mission, which is to educate and prepare students for the challenges and opportunities of a changing world. The mutually shared goal that I know all of us has is to be sure that our students get the best education that we can possibly provide to them, obviously doing our best to live within our means. The school department's original budget actually represented a 5.84% increase, the total being $22,985,252. As has happened in the past, at the request of the school committee, the leadership team met on numerous occasions and created various scenarios that created increasingly deeper cuts and reduced the budget in each column. The goal, however, of insulating our students was one that remained our top priority. As I said in one of the earlier slides, how would each of these decisions impact students and their achievement? The school committee and the leadership team has remained constant to our commitment, not only to bringing forward a fiscally responsible budget, but one that actually embraced and was open and transparent, available for the townspeople to participate in. Every revolving account has been tapped. The grants have been used very strategically so that, again, to minimize the impact. And although no new fees were implemented this year, you will see that there's a $90,000 offset based on the collection of bus fees. Moving forward, last night we had our public hearing at Auburn High School moderated by Mr. Baker. That was in compliance with Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 38N. We're here this evening, obviously presenting our budget before the school committee. We also sent out invitations to town meeting members. We've posted the meeting for the public hearing. All of the school committee meetings are open, and we welcome participation from members. And the administrator's budget presentations have been posted online. The budget reduction scenarios are likewise posted online, and it's been regularly updated, and that too has a question and answer section. And while we did not receive a single question this year, I think it speaks to the commitment of maintaining open and transparent process. So to end this presentation, Lee J. Colin said, "Success is a reflection of your commitment to excellence." I will tell you that certainly as the superintendent and the proud superintendent of the Auburn Schools, we are committed to excellence, but it is work that requires all of us together. So I thank you for your support, and we would be happy, Mr. Dede or I, to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thanks for the presentation. And I know this is at least your third night out in a row. I didn't know you had a public hearing last night.
We did.
How was that attended, by the way?
We had 3 guests.
3 guests?
3 guests.
Okay. I believe that might have been an increase over last year.
It was. There were two residents, and we actually had a student there who was fulfilling an assignment.
There you go.
I'm out of town.
And I know we're a little bit in jest here. I know you folks are as transparent as possible with televised school committee meetings. You guys work a hell of a lot of hours doing that, and that is appreciated whether we can reach your numbers or not, and we know where that goes every year. We know you're putting in the best effort and have the kids at mind first, and that is appreciated. It may not always be apparent that it's appreciated, but it certainly is, especially by this committee having a look at. Dan, what do you put, 200 pages together for us tonight? 250. I can't count any higher than 200. So, it was a great last budget, by the way, so thank you. I'm going to open this up to questions. This is going to be a little free-flowing, so, anyone questions anywhere would be great. I'll start with Chris. First question.
I'd like to,
Questions?
yes. Question one, actually, it's just to add the $883,000 increase in Chapter 70 funding. Have we gotten any feedback from our state legislators? I just want to know what they think it's going to actually be. I know you're saying 883, but that's tends to be a little higher than sometimes what it actually is. I don't know if that Ed or if that's Dr. Bernard.
Well,
Ed can answer, and then I'll do a follow-up,
All
if
right,
that's
and
okay.
they may know something that I don't know. We're expecting the House numbers to be released, I would say, in the next couple of weeks. Early on, it appeared that the governor's proposal didn't have any legs. But I think there is some consideration and maybe a compromise by way of tax increase. So governor proposed 1%. How accurate this is, I don't know, but they're at least considering a tax increase, not to the value of 1. What that would yield, we don't know. I can tell you in terms of cherry sheet early on, I think we remain conservative as a result of a growing deficit that existed in this fiscal year. Early on, a projection had that pegged on an annual basis close to $1 billion. Without any additional revenue being recognized or without any mechanism to increase taxation at that time, we believe that they would have to pass that along to municipalities by way of reduced local aid. Whether that impacts Chapter 7 or not, we don't know. I can tell you this budget that's currently before you provides for a 2% across the board decrease in cherry sheet state aid. That value is about $195,000. So if the governor's numbers should hold, and we're not going to know that certainly by the time you take a position on the warrant articles, that would yield an additional $1.150 million, $1,150,000, if that number should hold, because that would undo our 2% projection as well as increase the value by $883,000. And there is a piece of unrestricted local aid that would give general government side about an additional $72,000 of additional revenue. Clearly, we know we're going to have to revisit this side of the process probably after town meeting. My guess is by the time we go to town meeting, there will not be an approved state budget. Probably happen latter part of June. So we're going to have to make a consideration at a fall town meeting.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to, my other question was, will we have House numbers by the time we go to the May town meeting?
Yes, I believe we will.
The comment that I was going to make was last year when we were here, we were projecting, I'm going to use rough numbers, approximately a $700,000 increase in Chapter 70. And that was the number that we went to town meeting with. We actually ended up receiving $1.4 million in Chapter 70. So as Mr. Kazanovich said, I think he might have been advocating for an increase in the school department's budget if I heard him correctly. But so we won't know that information at this point. We don't know that information at this point, but hopefully more information will continue to come out of the State House.
I keep reminding Dr. Brunel that we have a $80 million OPEB liability that we have to address.
What?
Yeah,
I heard you.
Which could eventually affect you.
Sure enough.
exactly. Do we have any other questions? Once again, let's just be clear, though. We are not allowed to direct any particular areas of changing your budget. That's the rules that are set out here. There is I'll call it a minor difference between your final presented budget, not your original budget, of approximately 79,000
Correct.
from what town management has decided at this point in time on that. So what we'll end up be voting on, or whatever number that is, once again, we can only vote on a bottom line budget. And whatever that number is, I'm gonna follow that up with a question on where you think you're gonna have to make those cuts to get to the town number, at least at this point in time.
Sure.
Okay?
That has not yet been discussed with school committee. I anticipate.
Then I won't ask.
Okay, good
Okay.
enough.
Jim, go ahead.
I just had two questions. Do we have the figure for the foundation budget, what that number is this year?
Through the moderator, through the chair, for FY14 is 22 million and change projected as of now.
So we're over that foundation budget, but not by much.
Correct. Correct.
Second thing, contracts. Is there any expiring contracts coming up?
There are some expiring contracts. The largest one is the teacher's contract, and that does not expire actually until June of 15. So there are some of our smaller ones that are expiring. We're currently in negotiations with our cafeteria workers, and there are a few that we'll begin negotiations with next year, and we have planned appropriately for that.
Okay, so there's some type of contingency?
Correct.
Okay. Really, I mean, it's the 80,000, I mean, I was gonna say, what are you not getting with that, but 80,000, I mean, in the grand scheme of things is...
If I may, the foundation budget is 22.3 for FY14 as of now.
Okay.
So we're right there.
That's really all I got.
Thank you.
Ann?
I had a question about busing, and where do we stand in terms of the contract and how the fuel costs?
Starting in FY14, this would be the fourth year of a potential 5-year contract. If you recall, several years ago at town meeting approved a 3-year contract with the opportunity for 2 one-year extensions. Going into FY14, in the bid document, we talked about that if we were to roll this into a 4th year, that the index that I would use would be the CPI. There has been a bump for FY14 of 3.2%, which is driven by the CPI. Roughly, our daily rate next year will be $277 per day per bus.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Fire away.
A question, at the high school, I noticed there was a notation for some HVAC work there. And could you address that? Because it seems like it's still such a new building. What's happening?
The HVAC work is actually goes back to the original construction of the high school 6 years ago. There is a sum of money that remains from that project. I believe we spoke about this last year. It's a project that I regret that hasn't been moving as quickly as we would like. Mr. Fahey and I continue to work on that. We are in the process of selecting a designer relative to that, and then once we select that designer, we'll then choose a vendor to do the work. The approximate value of this was $436,000, which was a balance from the high school project.
All set?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Dan, I don't see you crawling around through ductwork, so that just was an interesting visual for a moment there. I really have one quick specific, actually I had the same question as Ann. I noticed the significant increase in the oil bill at the middle school. Was that a correction of something? I mean, that was just extraordinary?
The middle school, again, is the one building where we haven't made any capital investments in terms of the fuel. As you know, through our CIP, we've made adjustments both at Juliet Bancroft and Packagug over the past year or so. Again, with the middle school project in process, we're working off of an older system, if you will, and the usage has been up over the past year. We've used those actuals from FY12 and FY13 in the FY14 number. hoping that we can make some reduction, but otherwise, that's one building where we're still running with an older system.
Okay, thank you, and that certainly does make sense. I'd like to make one other comment, which is not necessarily operating budget, but relative to not asking you to come back unless you wanted to. I know there's been some discussion between, I'll say you folks in town administration, that post the vote on the middle school, the new middle school, there may be some further discussions depending on that regarding changes, significant changes in the CIP based on strategically where the school department is going to go after that. I wanted just to confirm that and make sure everyone knows. I mentioned a number of well over $1 million just on 2 schools that'll need some major rehab, depending on really the way this vote will go. So I'm just making that comment. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, is we'll revisit the approach to the CIP for the school.
We will, and we've actually held, as Mr. Didi said, several projects in abeyance, waiting to see what the voters decide on this project, and didn't want to invest large sums of money in a building that may potentially be taken offline. So I think you'll see some updates that will be made, and we have been in ongoing discussions with both Mr. Kazanovich and Ms. Jacobson around that.
I just wanted to underline there is communication going on in that hopeful eventuality. Okay, then, what we have before us, the town manager recommends a budget of $22,320,000, excuse me, which is approximately $79,000 below the department request of $22,399,397. It is an increase of, if my numbers are correct here, 2.78%, or just over $603,000 from the prior year approved budget. I believe we may have opportunity, well, certainly by town meeting floor, to look at those numbers, and to me, $79,000 is probably not going to be a big number to, let's just say, bring back online, hopefully by the time town meeting comes along and address that. So with that, we have a town manager recommendation before us. Do we have any more discussion, or do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend $22,320,000.
Second.
Discussion? Chris, do you have a?
The numbers are going to change. I mean, once the House numbers come out, why don't we just postpone the vote until we get a complete, it's going to change.
We can reopen it.
Because we can reopen it, and we've then wasted 4 weeks because we can reopen every budget too. Because every budget is either at risk or at benefit of what comes out of these numbers that come before us, Chris.
Yeah, but this is the first, have we ever voted this early on a high school, on a
Yes,
school
we
budget?
have. Yes, we have. Which is why we choose to have the ability to reopen these budgets. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Any further discussion? Chris, you bring up a good point, and I'm sorry if I'm
It's just,
pushing back
I know
on
they're
it.
going to change. I mean,
Yep.
I know you got to bring it up, but it's from a,
And this number won't get resolved until fall town meeting, by the way. So we really need a
The
starting
House
point.
budget is in the final budget anyway. You have to wait for,
Which is
The
no
conference
no
committee.
different than the last several years. And I've got a witness, who Mr. Westland out there, that can say it's probably gone back 20 years of waiting till fall town meeting to get these budgets finalized. Bill, I'd like to recognize, absolutely, if you want to come on up. So we do have a motion and a second.
down.
I apologize because I went to the meeting last night but it was so dark anything, I had little numbers and I couldn't read them.
There's still little numbers.
I just have one question. I meant to call Mr. Didi, and again, thank you so very much for everything you've done for us. Thank you. He's made a hell of a difference in numbers over the
Process.
years.
Absolutely.
It's just that I went through the budget and I listed down all of the positions that are to be negotiated. So we've got the same number. That figure adds up to $1,641,000. And then there's a number of individual contracts that apparently worked up on an annual basis. The other contract obligations number is only about $204,000. And there is something in there, this question is, Mr. Didi is getting ready to answer it, I'm sure. There's also a degree charge number in there for $45,000, and it's been increased to $154,000, but it says that's a $109,000 increase, but it says for FY 213 changes. So that sort of means that that number is being taken care of. The budget numbers as stagnant, but there's this $154,000 that's taking place behind that. My question simply is that if all of these people got a 1% raise, that would be only $164,000, and that would be $164,000, and we get $204,000. So it just seems to me that there's something missing there, and I'm sure Mr. Didi will answer that question. And I appreciate having the opportunity to ask.
Well,
Thank you very
anytime.
much.
Absolutely.
Through the chair, the $154,000 in the teacher's contract, there is a requirement that we are to be informed no later than October 1, prior to the new fiscal year, of any anticipated changes in staff relative to their degrees. We call them degree changes. We did receive those requests, Dr. Brunel received those requests this past fall, and when looking at the current teacher contract and the way that the steps are calculated, we anticipate that if all those people do succeed in achieving that degree change, that's going to cost us the additional $154,000. Thus, the value is plugged into that line item there. With respect to the other contractual obligations, once again, there are several groups, both individual and collectively, whose contracts are to be negotiated. Those groups also include administrators as well. The school committee gave us some guidance as to what we could use for a number, and so we used several scenarios as to what it may cost us, and those monies are there in the other contractual obligations.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation. Dr. Brunel, anything to add to that? Okay.
Mr. Didi answered it very succinctly. Thank you.
No, and to me, if I understood correctly, you're conservatively budgeting everyone reaching those expectations and goals that will become contractual obligations in terms of you really won't have any negotiating room should they attain those certain degrees or earmarks.
Correct. For the degree changes, that's all. As Mr. Didi said, they needed to notify us by October 1st of 2012 for a change to go into effect in 2014. So once we have that signed document from them, we budget for that anticipated change.
And those degrees wouldn't be attained probably until May or however they're.
Oh, definitely, generally June, yeah. June, sometimes even August, if the classes run through the summer.
Okay, great. And Mr. Westland, thank you. Great question, actually. Great question. Thanks for coming up. We have a motion before us and a second for the town manager recommended budget. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. One opposed. So voted. Dr. Brunel, thanks for your time. Good luck with the middle school project.
Thank you.
And I believe, feel free to, depending on how that subcommittee recommendation goes, if you wanted to forward us something electronically,
sure,
we'll distribute anyways. It'll just get us a little better educated on where your strategy is relative to that.
I would be happy to do that. And if I can, just in closing, do want to extend thanks to both Mr. Kazanovich and Ms. Jacobson. We're fortunate to have a tremendous working relationship. I think it is we have the utmost respect back and forth, and I think because of the positive collaborations that we have, we've been able to accomplish a great deal. So I do extend thanks to Eddie and Julie. Thank you.
And the feeling is mutual.
She's looking for some more money.
I am looking for more money, though, yes, for the record.
That's called doing your job, so thank you very much, and
You're
thanks for your
welcome.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Okay, so, budget's all set. We've got a couple of transfers that were just brought to my attention.
Sorry to keep you here.
Everyone have hard copies of those? I know we're trying to get away from
To
that.
help you here.
Yeah. These transfers in?
I've got 3 transfers, Jim.
Oh, it's double, is it? It's 2.
Just 2?
That's a photocopy of this.
All right, I'll go through them. We have 2 transfers.
I've never understood some of it. It's how you were thinking. Tell me. Good job.
Okay, these, let's get through these quick.
Yep, I'm up. Fine.
All right, the first transfer I have, this is under treasurer collector. This is, let's see, a transfer from the travel account. Amount requested $122.79, transferring to the office supplies account. Reason for transfer is to improve workspace and add shelving.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. And second and final transfer, this is under the assessor's office. This is from miscellaneous supplies. Amount requested $14.00.
Motion to approve.
Transfer to membership and dues to cover a projected, let me punch you over there, Kim, projected shortage in the assessor dues account. We might have to reopen that budget, make sure we're all set on this. Any discussion?
I'll give you the $14.
I believe we have a motion. I don't think we have a second yet, though.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. All right, so we're meeting next week. We've got the police, fire, and former Chief Bellimer will not duck us again. Emergency management will be in. Thought you'd appreciate that, Ken. We still have several budgets after that to finish up, along with the warrant article. Will probably have to be done on the 10th. Is that?
It's around that week,
Okay.
if not.
Okay, that's fine. Unless there's anything else, comments, great. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you.